Welcome to the Movies of the Dam podcast. My name is Kyle Grant, and I'm sitting here with my friend and published horror author, John Hunt. If you enjoy what you hear here today, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, check out our Facebook page, and follow us on both Instagram and Twitter at Dam Movies. Email us any questions, comments, and suggestions to moviesofthedamned@gmail.com. For further details on John's published works, please visit his blog, john.com. Today, we'll be discussing Chris Zobel's 2020 thriller, The Hunt. 11 captives wake up gagged in a forest and soon learn they are being hunted. They are quickly picked off one by one, and eventually it's revealed that they were chosen as a group of deplorables by an elite group of liberals to hunt. In the end, after several epic fight scenes, only deplorable Crystal survives and is able to escape to safety on a private jet of one of the liberal elites. John, opening thoughts on the movie?
Yeah, so you know how I feel about Blumhouse. So when I saw that it was produced by them, I was immediately on board, right, with this film. I've never walked away from a Blumhouse film being completely disappointed. Like some are obviously better than others. Some have blown me away, and some have been, maybe not as stellar as the other ones, I guess, but I've always had a good time, and I've always walked away thinking that was an enjoyable film, an enjoyable experience. So I was very happy to see that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Like this movie, I had a lot of expectations. I was really like eager to see this and excited to see this movie. Number one, as you just mentioned, it's a Blumhouse picture, and you and I will see anything that has Blumhouse attached to it just because of its great track record. Mm-hmm. But then number two, there was just like a lot of buildup and a lot of hype for this movie. So I don't know if you remember this, but if you rewind, this movie was actually supposed to come out back in September, at the end of September. And they did a full marketing campaign for it and everything. But then it got delayed because there was a couple mass shootings around that time.
Oh.
And so it was decided that due to the mass shootings, it was in poor taste to put it out. So then it got delayed. But like the fact that it got delayed, I'm like, oh wow, this must be like a really wild and crazy movie. And then the more I would watch the trailer, I would see different actors that I would recognize because, as you know, a lot of times in horror movies, not always, but a lot of times, you don't really get like actors that you recognize. And so because of that, and because of Blumhouse, and because the release date got delayed, I was like pretty excited for this thing.
Absolutely. Like horror movies are known for keeping their costs extremely low because they want to increase that profit margin. And at the same time, it's hard to get established actors to act in a horror movie. So usually you get those up and coming actors or people who are just getting into the field and trying to break into the industry. And you get a lot of good talent that way, right? Like Jamie Lee Curtis is named to name one of them, right? And then Neve Campbell as well. So it's interesting to see that for sure. And then you see some names that you know, right? So I thought that was I was also very like intrigued. I was like, how do you get these actors to sign on for this film? It must have been a very interesting script, right? So I was very interested to see what this movie had to offer.
Yeah, no, as was I, and then it ended up coming out on March 13th, but obviously due to everything going on, COVID-19 and everything like that, it was only in the theater for about a week before it ended up theaters got shut down, obviously, and then it got its digital release, and that's how you and I were both able to watch it. But this movie is one of those interesting ones. It has kind of a premise that we've seen many times before in
For sure.
man hunting other man. But even though like you've seen the setup so much, I just love the delivery, and it still felt unique. And it's just so weird that a movie that's been done so many times before felt unique. Did you get that same feeling?
Well, yeah, it's a tried and true premise, and I got to tell you, like, even though it's a tried and true premise and it's not very original in at its core, it's still always interesting to me. I still always want to watch these films, right? So, I've read the the book, the most dangerous game, and then from that, you have sort of like a Hunger Games vibe, and you also have that movie. I probably should look this up. That movie with Ice T in it a while ago, and he was a homeless person. He was being hunted by rich people. They always
Oh,
have
no,
like,
Ice Cube, right?
oh, was it Ice Cube?
Yeah, but I can't remember the name. Now I'm second guessing myself, but I
I'm
can't remember
pretty
the name
sure it
of
was
it
Ice
either.
T, but
Okay,
um,
sorry.
but I could be wrong. So still, you're always interested. You're always interested to see because it's pretty much like it is the ultimate underdog story with the highest stakes possible, right? So it's very intriguing just from that standpoint. And once again, though, it may be a tried and true premise, but they introduced it. That's the worst. They introduced new elements to make it seem fresh, to make it seem new, and to keep you engaged. And I was immediately engaged.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And the thing that immediately engaged me was again how they presented it. So kind of, we'll fast forward a little bit through the start, but when the hunt begins, so to speak, you wake up with the one actress, and she's from American Horror Story. I can't remember her name. Emma
Her name
Roberts, is
Emma
that her name?
Roberts, and she was in Scream
Yeah,
4. Like she's a good actor.
great actress.
Hmm.
In a bunch of seasons of American Horror Story, as I said, I'm a
Hmm.
big fan of hers. But you kind of wake up with her, where she wakes up in this forest, and you're like, oh, cool. She's going to be kind of like the main actress, and you follow her for 5 minutes max, and then she gets killed.
Yeah.
Like that blew my mind. And then another actor you recognize takes over, and I can't remember the order now, but it was either the fella from the Mindy Project
He
or the
was
fella from
after.
This Is Us.
He was.
Okay,
It was.
and then
This
you're
is
like,
us. Yep.
the This Is Us fella, Kevin from This Is Us. My apologies for not knowing his real name, but you're like, oh, okay, I guess he's the main character, and then you follow him for a couple minutes max, and then he dies,
Yeah, I
and then
know.
it's just it flips and flops like that 3 or 4 times. So right away, I was kind of like, my socks were blown off. I'm like, what a cool way to present a movie where like you don't know who the main character is going to be, and
Yeah,
every time, John, I'm not kidding you, they had me hook, line, and sinker. Every time I'm like, okay, that was fun. Now this is the main character.
I
And I'm
know.
like, okay,
Well,
that was fun. Now this is the main character. It was just like such a cool way to start the movie.
well, they used classic elements to or classic styles to get that across. So right. So it's like you get introduced to Emma Roberts, and you know they approach this box in the middle of the field. They take the thing off. She's the one that finds the keys, right? Um, so usually the main character will be the one that's driving the story forward, and they'll make the clever decisions. They'll make the realizations that progresses the story forward. So that was her. She was doing that from the very beginning. You're like, okay, she's the clever one. She's the one that's going to be underestimated, and she's going to come out on top, and then boom, she gets her head blown off. And then it goes
Yeah.
to the next guy who's able to show someone else who was showing her how to actually use the gun, and this is how you use the gun. So he has some knowledge and skills and abilities, and he's watching what's going on around him, and he's not rushing out there. He's figuring stuff out. And you're like, okay, so this is the guy, this is the person we're supposed to be following. And then once again, like you said, boom, steps on a landmine, right? So it's just like, and then it goes to the Mindy Project guy who was also in Suicide Squad. He's a pretty funny dude. Um, you
Great
follow,
actor,
yeah,
actually.
yeah. You follow him and two other people to this convenience store, and they're making smart, what you think are smart decisions at the time, and they're able to dodge and evade and make their way out of the main hunt area, and then boom, they're dead. I'm like, this is so interesting, so interesting. So you didn't know you didn't know who
Yeah.
the main character was going to be at any time, so it was excellent that way.
No, very, very interesting, right? And then the one scene you skipped over, which made me cringe, the lady who was had impaled her like stomach on that
Oh, I
pit
know.
of spikes. Oh my gosh, right? Like it's
And
just like so wild.
good for that guy to pull her off it though.
Oh yeah, and like helped her, but
Yeah,
it's like the classic horror movie mistake, right? Like you put yourself out there by helping someone else, and you end up dying yourself.
I
But
know. That was good
but
though.
but but just to rewind a little bit, so when they first wake up and they see each other, they're gagged. They don't know what's going on, and then there's the giant crate, the big box in the middle of the field, and you kind of see like I want to see almost like three different reactions. Some people go right to it to open it. Some people are kind of like go nearby to like check it out, and other people hang back to be like, this feels weird. I'm going to kind of stay in the protection of the forested area. Which camp do you see yourself landing in? I know this is an impossible question, but if you're in that situation, do you go straight to the box? Do you kind of go nearby but don't open it, or do you hang back in the forested area?
I'm an observational type of guy, so I would hang back and see what's going on because at that point, you have no idea what is going on, right? You don't know how you got there. You don't know who the people are around you. And there's a crate in the middle of an open field. And I've seen enough movies and read enough books to know that why do you put something that's interesting or that you'd be curious about in the middle of an open field? It's for line of sight, right? So I would automatically think that if I'm going to go out there, someone's going to shoot me. So I'd sit there and hang back for sure and watch what other people are up to. And then,
And I guess the fact that you're gagged, that gives you the thought like, okay, someone wishes to cause me harm.
well, yeah, for sure. And or the fact that you showed up somewhere with a bunch of strangers, like all that stuff is wrong, right? All that stuff would make you think this is not cool, right? So it's not just the gag in itself; it's the whole totality of the situation.
Yeah, no. And you know what? I think I'm in the same group as you. I think I hang back. Obviously, you never know until you're in the
For
situation.
sure.
But yeah, I think I would hang. I think I'd be nervous, and I think I'd hang back too, and hope that there was whatever was in there. There'd be enough for everyone. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Because that's the risk. If you hang back, there's only enough for like the first couple of people who get there. You're kind of in a tough spot. But I definitely think I hang back. But as you
Well,
kind of brought up earlier, buddy,
yeah,
definitely had a bit of a Hunger Games vibe, eh?
yeah, for sure. I was just thinking though, like for about you just woke up. You know you're not hurt yet. There's no injuries. You're not starving. You're not thirsty. So there's nothing in that crate that would be immediate that you would need immediately. You know. So that's why another reason why I would hang back. There's nothing that could be in there that I would need right now in order to
Yeah, yeah.
survive. So if I was dying of thirst and there's a giant gushing ball of water, then yeah, I'd probably run for it, right? But other than that, it'd have to be pretty damn intriguing for me to get to it. But going back to the Hunger Games, yeah, absolutely. So that's exactly what Katniss and all her friends had to deal with, right? Had to rush to the middle to get that crate, and whoever got the weapons first was coming out on top, right?
Exactly. And so I
Yeah,
guess maybe that's what was in my head and being like, oh, you got to get there first or you're not gonna have a weapon. But then it's a tough spot to be in, obviously, an impossible spot. But
hmm
I just thought I'd bring it up. But one thing I wanted to mention before we go any further in this movie, I just wanted to rewind a little bit to the very start. And so before the actual hunt begins, the film's presented on this jet as I guess the liberal elite, so we don't know it at that time, but they're flying to the hunt, and all these deplorables are unconscious, they're drugged, and the one fellow wakes up. What were your thoughts on that? Because I had a bit of an issue with it. I think that they're taking the extra precaution to tie these deplorables, so to speak, up before, even though they're drugging them.
to secure them even better, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just in case, right? Because we know, even though I'm on the medical field, I've seen tons of TV shows, tons of movies, I've heard of tons of cases where people have woken up unexpectedly in surgeries or when they're not supposed to, or there is an issue with the anesthetic or something like that. So I just see them tying these people up.
So there's two reasons why I didn't have a problem with that. The first one is we don't know how many times these people have done it. This could be their
Fair
first
enough,
time.
yeah.
This could be all experimentation. This could be we have no idea. So when you do something first few times, um, you learn from your errors, right? So if this is the first time, then that's their first error. Two, you knew that the second guy that was dealing with them was a doctor. So if you are with a bunch of friends and you know one of them's a doctor, you would trust this doctor to know how much to drug each person because the doctor would have to base that upon the person's body weight, height, all that type of stuff, right? So you would trust that. I would think, anyways, trust that doctor enough to know that if he puts them out with this drugs, they're going to be staying out, right?
Yeah,
But
that's true.
but everyone has different metabolisms and they could wake up. So um,
Exactly.
no, and I understand that, but once again, we didn't know how many times they've done this, so I didn't really have a problem with that. I had a problem with her being able to nail the guy's eye with a high heel shoe because that's really really hard to do. To hit
But
anyone,
I was
yeah,
just going to say that I'm glad that he woke up, because what a crazy kill scene. The high heel shoe to the eye, like,
Yeah,
made me cringe.
I know. Like anything, yeah. The eyes always gross, right? Like, what are you gonna do?
Oh, and my eyes are so sensitive, right? Like I anytime I need to put eye drops in or anything, I always struggle with that. I'm so glad that I don't need glasses to wear contacts. Um, but like just like taking a high heel shoe to the eye, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's it. Yeah, it's cringeworthy, that's for sure. But uh, when it's so unrealistic like that, it does tend to take me out of the movie.
Okay.
Depending on the context of the movie, right? So at that point, I had no indication that it would be a horror comedy or anything like that. So, a horror comedy, you expect, uh, kills of that nature. So,
Yeah.
but at that point, I wasn't. I didn't think that at all. So it kind of takes me out whenever something that unrealistic happens. That's all. But
No,
didn't
that makes
diminish.
sense.
It didn't diminish. It didn't make me want to turn off the film. It's just more like for a second, I'm like, you know, that's not possible, and then I move on. You know.
Yeah, no, I get you. And for anyone who hasn't seen this movie yet, the way that I described that opening scene with the fact that it was the whatever they call them, the deplorables were tied up and the liberal elites were on the jet, that is true. But as a viewer, you didn't know that at that point. And I thought that was another good thing about this movie is that it wasn't explained to the viewer right away really what was going on. Kind of
Yeah.
as the hunt is progressing and people are getting picked off and people are trying to survive, it kind of slowly gets revealed as to exactly what the setup was, why the people are there, why the people are being hunted. And I just thought that that was another cool thing about the movie because I was interested throughout. I'm like, not only am I enjoying like this hunt sequence, but I'm also
Mhm.
kind of intrigued about how we got here. And I like that it didn't get explained right away. I like that it got explained slowly throughout the movie.
For sure, because that helps reduce expositions, right? And expositions are kind of they can be annoying when they're not done well, and they're hard to do well. So if you can avoid them, don't use exposition. So I like this way. It was like throwing little breadcrumbs throughout the film to say, okay, I'm following this, and then you don't get much information. And then later on, oh, there's another little piece. You know what I mean? And then it kind of like pulls it all together near the end, and you're just like, oh, okay. And yeah, I absolutely like the way they did that.
The one scene that had me laughing a little bit is when they kind of run into, I want to call them the group of refugees hiding on the train.
Yeah, yeah.
And the one fella, I can't remember his character's name, but he was just spewing kind of like what you would assume to be kind of like the racist rhetoric. It's like, oh, these aren't real refugees. These
Yeah,
are
yeah.
actors or whatever,
They want me to
crisis
feel
actors.
sorry
Like,
for them. Yeah.
yeah, no, this isn't real. And then it ends up in the end that the one fella is an actor and is actually one of the liberal elites. When that actually came true, like I laughed so hard at that
I know,
because it
because
was just like,
you're
yeah, it's
immediately
so
like, I don't like
ridiculous.
this guy, right? Because he's like
Oh
being
yeah,
a
'cause he's
jerk,
saying
right? I
awful
hate this guy.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then but only for one of the people, he was actually right. So you're like, oh my god, come on. So it's pretty
A-
funny.
and he was probably surprised too, right? Because for
Yeah,
all these people saying these things, like it's never true. There's never any proof, and for him to actually get proof is like, what? Really?
I
You're
know.
actually an actor, type of thing. I just laughed so hard at
Yeah,
that part. And there were like, this wasn't a horror comedy per se, but there was a lot of like comedy throughout.
for sure. There's levity throughout. Like once again, we've talked about it before. You can't have something be too stressful without adding some comedic relief breaks. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I wouldn't say this was overly stressful and it needed them, but it was one of those films where it certainly benefited from it.
No, it definitely did. And then there was more actors that you'd recognize. So I don't know if you've ever watched the show Always Sunny in Philadelphia or AP Bio, two great shows.
Hmm.
But the male lead from both those shows was one of the liberal elites, and he was kind of one of the people when they had the scene of the liberal elites kind of in their, I want to call it like their bunk area, and there's like the Navy SEAL Army guy that they've hired, and the one fellow was being just like such a jerk and a
Hmm.
pompous asshole is the best way I can describe it. Like, it just, again, some more funny scenes in there. It just had
Yeah,
a
yeah,
good flow to this movie overall.
for sure, for sure. So
Um,
we're getting to the problems then.
yeah, good. If you got a problem to bring up, you go right ahead, my friend.
No, you don't have any problems with this film.
And see, that's just it, right? Like, I didn't have too many huge issues. Just because. the premise is so ridiculous to begin with.
Hmm.
The premise of like setting up a hunt of human beings, getting them there, abducting them without any problem. It's just such a ridiculous premise that like I almost felt like I was willing to let more things go than I normally would. The big thing that popped out of me right away, and I've already brought it up, is that fella waking up in the airplane and not being restrained.
Hmm.
But other than that, John, like nothing too wild. And I know that's so rare for me because I'm usually such a nitpicker, but I think it is again just because of the fact that this premise is so ridiculous. I was much more willing to let so many more things go.
Even the motivation why you got all these people together to agree to commit mass murder.
And you know what? When you bring that up, that's tough because like mass murder, even for someone who does bad things, is like something that's so against a liberal's viewpoint, right? Like the liberals are against capital punishment. They're against these type of things. So you're right. It is tough to believe that these group of liberal elites would be willing to do something like this.
And for the reason of what? Do you remember the reason?
Yeah, she lost her job because of a tweet or a social media post
Of a text that she sent, right?
of a text. Sorry.
Yeah, so someone else, it was a work phone, someone else got a hold of the text. One of these people, because these people were all either podcasters or writers who were talking about the liberal elites
They were
doing
like
these hunts, right?
right wing pundits, conspiracy theorists, that type of thing.
Yes, yes. So those were the victims in this. So I had a big problem with that, big problem.
Okay. All right.
So, for the motivation wise, like so, because then I'm unsure of what genre am I looking at, right? Am I looking at a horror comedy? Because if I'm looking at a horror comedy, then the reasons why don't bother me as much. But I don't really think I'm looking at a horror comedy. I was looking at something maybe in between, which in my mind there should be some plausible explanation for this. And then secondly, this is the first hunt that they ever did, right?
Yeah, you find that out later. Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason why they did this hunt is because she lost her job from that text suggesting that they might do a hunt. So she sends this text out, and they've never done it before, and she gets fired for doing this thing she texted about, but is insinuating that she's done, and then she goes and does the thing that she was reprimanded for, and then
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
and then gets everyone else involved to do it as well, to agree to shoot and kill people.
Yeah.
I don't
You
think so, man.
you selected your accomplices perfectly, right? Because for this thing to get tripped up, all it takes is you go to one person, and that person's like, "Yeah, good idea," and then goes to the police, right?
It's not even that, right? Just to get them all. Yeah, it's just one. If you're gonna murder people, telling other people is like a huge risk. Even one
100%.
one
Yep.
person, and then you're gonna increase that risk by telling like 8 people, and then hiring outside contractors from the reserves to help you do this. I have a really really huge issue with that. Like
And so when you bring that up, John, like it makes sense. I guess it just didn't bug me throughout, and I don't know why. I can't give you a particular reason. I don't. I guess I just didn't feel as critical on this movie. I don't know. Maybe I was in a different mindset when I was watching it.
Oh, for sure. And you want to be in a mindset where you're trying to objectively watch the film, and if you're getting it, getting enjoyment out of the film no matter what, then that's your experience, and that's nothing to say anything about it, right? I'm just saying, like for me, that like once again, the main problems with any movie that I watch are parts that take me out of the film,
Yeah.
and that plot, the reasons behind. You get a group of people, relatively intelligent people, maybe misguided, but relatively intelligent people, all agree to abduct, kidnap people, throw them in a field, and then hunt them for the purposes of murdering them. I'm not buying that. Not buying
I
that at
think
all.
And again, that comes back to my point that it's just like such like a ridiculous premise to begin with that I think I was just willing to be like, if this is the premise, if this is what I'm buying into, I'll buy into much more than I normally would.
For sure, but then the whole movie should have been ridiculous.
Yeah, there should have been more over the top stuff, maybe a little bit more comedy than there was. But it was over the top. It was ridiculous. Like, how about that epic fight scene at the end, kind of to the classical music in the background? Didn't you think that was kind of cool and ridiculous?
Well, yeah, it was definitely fun to watch. Like once again, this movie was great fun to watch. There's nothing like there's a lot of good action scenes. There's a lot of good plot progression, right? Where that Don character, right? You still don't even know if he was one of them or not, right? So that
Oh
was
yeah,
pretty
yeah,
cool.
kind of like the double agent thing. You had no
Yeah,
idea what was going on there.
yeah. So like that stuff, like it was all there's a lot of stuff that was really really good. So it's just I guess my only problem with the film is that is the reason why this is all occurring, right? So like in the previous films, it's just like it's usually hunters who got tired of hunting animals and they want to
A bigger
experience
challenge.
yeah a better challenge. So they take someone off the street that's no one will miss. These are people that people will miss.
Yeah, because they're like quasi celebrities online, like you
Yeah,
said, like podcasters and
yeah.
that type of thing, bloggers.
So there's so many things wrong with the selection of the
Hmm.
people, getting all the people there to agree that they're going to murder a bunch of people, and then transporting these people around the world to commit this murder, and then setting up a fake convenience store in this other country to commit these murders. Like there's too much that took me out of the film.
But
Um,
that and I get that, but that fake convenience store led to a really cool scene.
there's a lot of great scenes, and I really like that convenience store. Right,
Yeah,
especially some of the jokes, right? Where it's like because you learned through the murders of other people that some of the food in there, some of the stuff in there was poisoned. Like they
yeah,
poisoned
yeah,
it,
yeah.
right? So then he takes a drink of the soda, and she's like, "That's poison," and he spits it all out. She goes, "You know how much sugar is in that? So not actual
Oh yeah,
poison,
and again, that was a great line.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. There's like, you know what I mean? Like they're almost like they're kind of like the hippie liberals, but they really have a hate on for anyone espousing far right conservative views,
Yeah.
and which most I would say a lot of people don't like
Hmm.
far right conservative views. Conservative views,
I don't I,
yes,
I don't think people like the extreme on either side, to be
yes,
completely
right,
honest.
and I would say that's a valid statement for sure. So so that's who you understand they have a they don't like, but to agree to murder them,
Yeah,
people,
that's a
yeah,
little far-fetched, a little hard to believe.
right. And secondly, so she was fired for this very reason, right, for sending this text. So her boss and that other person weren't involved in it, but they know that she sent this text. And then all these people that were complaining about her online, because that's the reason why he said he fired her. The
Yeah.
reason why all these people were complaining online now have disappeared.
She'd be suspect number one.
You know what I mean? Like, and because the boss and this other girl aren't involved. So like,
Yeah.
what do they have at stake here? There's no reason for them not to tell. I don't even know. It's just like all that stuff is like you got to close some of these loops, man. Right? Like so
Well, you know
they
what, John?
could
Maybe
be.
they'll be further closed in the hunt too.
I just think it's like um so maybe they were just trying to create an entire new genre where your expectations were not the same as ever, right? Because it's like I said, if this was a horror comedy, I'm laughing at that plot. It's pretty ridiculous, and I'm in. But I didn't get the sense that this was a horror comedy, right? So I almost it's like a more hybrid, like with like maybe a horror action with you know
Yeah, like a thriller.
yeah, right. So but I didn't get the so when you have those type of films that's not horror comedy, then the underlying premise, the underlying reason for what's occurring should be solid.
Hmm.
That's all. That's my
No,
only criticism. But once again, would I tell any other people to watch this? For sure. I told my son to watch it. I told my wife to watch it. I enjoyed this film. It was a lot of fun. Had a lot of great scenes. Great actors. And it was just great fun. But I'm just gonna say like that's when stuff takes me out of the movie. it's not going to get as high praise as other films that don't take me out of the movie.
No, and I can't argue with it. And as you said, great scenes. The last great scene I wanted to bring up was at the very end when the fight's kind of over, and she cauterizes the wound with that blowtorch.
Yeah, yeah. But
how tough is she?
I know she was a great character actually. But you know what else I really liked the Jackrabbit story.
Yeah.
And then Dawn at the end, your mom told you that story, and then at the very end, when she's like almost gonna quit and be down and out, and she's so injured, it's just before she uses the blowtorch, she sees a jackrabbit in the floor. Right? Like
no,
she sees a rabbit in the kitchen. She's like, the jackrabbit always wins, right? So she got up and took care of herself and left. I kind of like that stuff. It was fairly cheesy, but I still enjoyed it.
No, it kind of tied things up in the end well.
Yeah.
Now, Rotten Tomatoes. Critic score 55.
Yep.
Audience score 66.
Yep.
Now I like this movie. I wouldn't. This is not a classic or anything like that. I see myself giving it maybe a 70, low 70s. So I'm higher than both the critics and the audience score. Where are you at?
I'm there. I'm right with you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And then, as I kind of mentioned already, this film had a tough go it seemed like this movie was cursed. It had a tough go at the box office. Its original late September date got pushed back due to the mass shootings. Then when it was released on March 13th, COVID-19 smoked it. So it was only again in theaters for a week. Budget of $14 million, only brought in $6.5 million at theaters. Hopefully,
deserved better than
that. I think so too. Yeah. And hopefully through like digital streaming again, people are digitally streaming way more than ever right now. Mm-hmm. Hopefully it was able to recoup its budget and more. Not that I necessarily want to see a sequel to this, but I just want to keep seeing Blumhouse taking risks, doing kind of new, innovative stuff. And because I just enjoyed their film so much.
For sure.
Well, buddy, anything else to add on this one?
I do not.
Perfect. Well, folks, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out our Facebook page and follow us on both Twitter and Instagram at Damn Movies. We want to hear what you thought at today's podcast and any suggestions you have, especially in terms of what movies you'd like us to discuss next. Send us an email to moviesatdamned@gmail.com. Please also check out John's full-length novels. His first two novels, Dollhouse and The Tracker, are Amazon bestsellers. You can also order his novella Balance, his book of short stories, 4 Shots of Horror, and his newest novel, Off the Grid, all right now available on Amazon. For further details on John's other published works, please visit his blog, johnhuntfiction.wordpress.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, everyone, thanks for listening. Stay safe.